Welcome back to ESO Live. We are back after a long break. We're very happy to see you.
It's been a long time.
Yes.
I actually counted the months. I thought it was like maybe a couple months, but it's been like 5 months almost.
Oh, wow.
It's been a while.
Gosh, well, suffice to say we're happy to be back. I'm Jessica Folsom, one of the community managers for the Elder Scrolls Online.
Gina Bruno, other CM for Elder Scrolls Online.
So while we were gone, we saw a lot of messages of, when are you guys coming back? We really missed the show. And we just wanted to say thank you so much for those messages. They really made us smile.
Feels so good.
You're the whole
Thank
reason
you.
we do this show and why we love it so much. So thank you, and we hope you continue to enjoy the show. We're very happy to be back. We should be picking the shows back up regularly.
Ideally, we would like to go back to every other week. We are kind of on a new home, new time, celebrating
New
the
year.
fact that we're back. Yay, and it's 2017. So we are on the Bethesda channel. We're going to try and do 3 o'clock on Fridays, a little bit earlier than we used to. I was actually going to say,
Friday.
I was going to say somebody should go to the other channel and make sure there's nobody there, but I'll just do it since.
So while she's doing that, just to recap, yep, we'll be on the Bethesda Twitch channel, probably every other Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
So for any new viewers that we have watching, first, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Just talking real quick about what is ESO Live and what is the show that you're going to be watching. Nobody's chatting over here. Perfect.
Okay.
We did our jobs.
Yeah.
So ESO Live in general, sort of your place for news on the Elder Scrolls Online. We kind of go through some recent news, some hot topics. We like to have ESO developers on the show to kind of talk through either things in development or things that are coming, things that have recently happened, new updates, what have you. And also just a place to showcase things from the community, whether it's art or screenshots, if there's events happening, contests. So it's kind of just a big
Your ESO variety show.
Exactly. So there was a thread that we put up maybe a few months ago kind of asking, what do you want to see from the show? And there were a lot of really great ideas that came out of that. So,
we did read it.
In future shows, we will definitely pull some of those ideas in. We have a really big Word document of like, here's things that we're definitely going to hit at some point. So we did see it, and thank you so much for the feedback.
So I guess let's dive into what is today's show all about.
Yes, indeed.
So first up, we're going to talk to lead combat designer Eric Roble and creative director Rich Lambert about Update 13 Balance.
After that, we're going to have our lead systems designer, Philip Draven, and one of our other systems designers, Mandy Parker. They'll be talking about Homestead and our upcoming player housing system.
And then we'll have a chat about the key art, those really cool art pieces that you see created for every major update with senior concept artist Lucas Slaminsky.
He does some really good work.
Does.
You definitely want to stick around for that. As always, we will have a couple giveaways during the show, so be sure and stick around because they're really good ones. So to kick things off, let's get into some news. There's been a lot happening. Like a metric ton of stuff. So first, in case you missed it, Homestead is going to be launching next, wait, what day is it? Is it next week? No. The week after. I'm sorry. Gosh. Brain no worky. Homestead will be launching PC on February 6th and on console February 21st. So be ready.
Yep. And next week is our last Homestead PTS before launch, before PC launch. And we will have a North American character copy. So if there are some last things you'd like to test out or you'd just like to play around with the housing editor a little bit more with your main character, that's the time to do it. So look for the patch notes on Monday. Monday, right?
Monday.
Yep.
Really wanted to give you guys a sneak peek of the patch notes, but can I be honest? They're just not done. Like, I haven't even started, so sorry. My bad. One of the things that we've been seeing a lot about recently whenever we talk about Homestead and the player housing system, we have the gold prices listed on the PTS, but not the crown prices. So we wanted to give you just sort of a range of prices so you know sort of what to expect once it launches, if I can find the thing.
So this is just the unfurnished homes, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Just unfurnished. You'll have the option of purchasing either unfurnished or furnished. So for unfurnished homes, apartments will start around 1,000 crowns. Small-sized homes will be anywhere from about 3,100 to about 4,000 crowns. Medium-sized homes are about 5,000 to 6,500 crowns. Large homes start at about 7,500 to about 8,500 crowns. And then the manors, which are the really large ones, those will start at around 10,000 crowns. So again, those are the unfurnished ones. Furnished homes, we're still determining the final prices for those, but they're a real kick-ass value. I mean, there is so many items that go into these, and again, we're still trying to figure out the final prices for them, but
I know they definitely want to make them worthwhile if you get the whole thing with all the furnishings as opposed to buying all the furnishings by themselves.
You can kind of just move in and get comfy.
Yeah,
There's
it's nice.
Lots of things in there.
So lastly, actually no, second to last, Matt's usual year ahead, some of you call it the road ahead message, is coming next week. So I know a lot of you have been asking about it. We've seen it, we've read it, it's great. It's coming really next week.
It's very meaty. One other thing that we've seen people kind of asking about is the next Crown Crate season. We can let you know that Wild Hunt, that is going to be the next season, which we know some of you have data mined. You might have seen some images kind of floating around on the forums.
It's kind of a Spriggan themed.
That will be coming sometime in March. So keep an eye out. We'll give more details as it gets closer to release.
Yep. So that wraps up our news. Are you guys ready to talk Update 13 balance with Eric and Rich?
I am.
All right.
Let's do it. So?
Can I talk now?
Here they are.
Were you guys
that was
holding
so
your hand the
hard.
whole
We've
time?
been sitting here the whole time. Just
We threatened them right
noise,
before.
don't make
Don't
noise.
say anything.
All right, so welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, yeah, thanks. It's
We know
really
there's a lot
good to be
going
back.
on.
Yeah.
I was shocked when you said 5 months. It seems not that long
I didn't
ago.
think it
I
had been that
know.
long either,
Yeah.
but
It doesn't feel like it.
we will not stay away that long ever again.
So in case anyone hasn't met either of you yet, this is Eric Roble. He's our lead combat designer, and Rich Lambert, our creative director, joining us today for a little gameplay
And
chat.
you guys are sporting some nice ESO swag there, huh?
We all
my mage?
shop at the
Yeah.
same store.
Yeah, weird, huh?
All right, so to kick things off, there's been a lot of changes that's on the PTS right now. It'll be going live for Update 13. Lots of balance. Do you mind?
Casey walking in.
Oh,
Damn
God.
it, Casey.
Thank you, Casey.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the thing I was just saying, whatever it was.
Do you remember? Balance changes.
Balance
There's
changes.
been a
a
lot
bunch of
coming in. Every PTS update, there's been more, and you guys have done a really
Yeah.
good job at putting in dev notes lately too, which I know the
Thank
players
you.
have really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be something that we're going to try and do a lot more of moving forward, is
Yep.
adding sort of developer comments, if you will, in the patch notes, just sort of explaining why we're making some of the changes that we did. Because a lot of times you'll look at something and it's like, increase speed by 1,000%. And it's like, well, why?
Why?
So
I
it
remember,
leaves
that was a controversial one, 1,000%. People were like, what about like just
maybe
500, maybe?
100,
Yeah,
whatever.
It's,
it was.
it's a new year. We wanted to try something a little bit different. We wanted to try to, give people a little bit more insight as to why we make the changes we make. If you're on Twitch or you're reading the forums a lot of times you get the, well, they just throw darts at a dartboard kind of thing, right? And
That's
that's
exactly
totally
right.
not how it works. We do have a process.
We use a blindfold first, of course.
So I kind of, thanks, Eric. You just totally reinforced what I didn't want to reinforce. So I wanted to share some of that process, and then we can go into the more detailed stuff, a little bit later. So
Yeah, and with those developer comments, we're not going to do every single note because there's already 100 pages or something like
my
that of
gosh.
patch notes, right?
Could you imagine every single note?
Yeah, so it's just the things where it's like, okay, this is a really big dramatic change to the gameplay. It's like, okay, well, we just fixed this bug, where something wasn't working. We're not going to put a developer comment for
Right,
everything.
right.
And I think Gina's done a really good job, too, of like the little, you can expand it or whatever. So if you're like, okay, well, I don't want
Spoilers.
to...
Thank you. Yeah,
Spoilers.
it's like a little spoiler tag. You
Yeah.
just click the button.
So you can be like,
and-
oh, I don't, I don't care about this class or whatever. I only play this class. So you can just, look at the stuff that
Hop
you
right
want to
to
look
it,
at.
yeah.
So ultimately, when you're doing balance changes like you just did in this update, how do you decide what is going to get nerfed, if you will, or what's going to get a buff?
So the very first thing we do, kind of at a high level, is come up with basically a series of goals. What is the meat? What is the direction behind the changes? And the way we come up with that is a lot of just you and I sitting down and talking. What are kind of the major issues? What are the big things we want to focus on? And a few weeks ago, I made a post. I think it was a few weeks ago now. A post
Everything
kinda
goes so fast.
explaining what Homestead direction was for balance. And in there, I highlighted 3 points, but they all can kind of be summed up into one, which is we wanted to bring the top DPS classes and the bottom DPS class is a little closer together. Shrink that gap between top and bottom.
And specific builds, too,
In
right?
specific
Yeah.
builds,
Yeah.
stamina versus magic, that kind of stuff. And so that's what we tried to do with this. And that's how Eric's team, once they got that direction, was able to go in and start identifying, well, where are the outliers and how does that stuff work? We dig through a lot of feedback. We dig through a lot of metrics. We look at morph bias.
Yeah, yeah. So to sort of elaborate on some of those sources that we use to come up with this, definitely one of the key and first things that we look at is a DPS parse. So we run through the numbers, we run through the builds, and we do the same build over and over again against a target dummy, so we can see, all right, what's the top end of this build? What's the most you can possibly do with this build? And then we, compare them all to see, okay, this class is doing this well, this class is doing this well. And with the high level direction for this one, we're looking at single target damage of like what's the most possible damage you can do to one single target.
And when you guys do that, do you take abilities that you see have been really popular and kind of create builds around those?
Yeah, we get those from multiple different sources. We play the game a lot, you know, so we'll have our builds, and then we'll also do research, on different websites and forums and stuff to see, what are the top parses that some of the top guilds and stuff are like. Okay, they cleared this, in this amount of time, so let's grab some of their builds and see how they do.
Right.
So there's definitely. When we're making our changes, then, we'll change the numbers for a whole bunch, and then we rerun all those parses again to see, okay, now where does everything fall in line? Is everything performing the way we want it to? And when we're doing that, some of the changes that you saw for this update were a direct result from how did it feel when we were doing that rotation. So Haunting Curse is an example of one of those, where we changed it so that instead of having to recast it every 3.5 seconds, it felt really maintenance-y. It felt like a lot of work of like, I'm really pressing the same button over and over and over again. So that's why we ended up changing that to 12 seconds and making it explode twice, because we also wanted to increase the DPS that the sorcerer was able to do there. And then there was a little bit of feedback on the forums about that change, just a little bit.
Just a bit.
Where the PvPers were like, this was a really great tool I was able to use for quick burst damage, and now it's got to wait a really long time to be able to go off, and I'm not as effective. And now it like messes up the timing with recasting my damage shields and stuff like that. So we tweaked it so that it would be in a spot where it would retain that functionality in PvP, but still have the desired changing your rotation, increasing your DPS. So that's how we got to the spot of it still fires after 3.5 seconds, but then if you wait another 8.5 seconds after that, it'll do the second explosion. So if you're a PvPer, you can immediately recast it after that explode happens if you want, and then you can get another explosion to happen really quickly. And then PvPers now have that extra flexibility of second one if they want to try to line up their timing in sort of a different way. So I think we're pretty happy with where we landed on that one.
Yeah, I think overall, this PTS cycle went really, really well. We had a bunch of changes. We had a testing point where people got in, got to play them, got to give us a whole bunch of feedback. We were able to action on that feedback, which is something that I definitely want to continue doing going forward.
Yeah, and a really good example of that one is the coagulating blood change.
Another little bit of
Highly
feedback on
debated.
that
Saw
one,
that a
yes.
few times.
So what we were trying to go for with our initial change of that is to allow the ability to scale off of offensive Magicka stats while still being used in an interesting and tactical manner. The way that the base ability is, where you're waiting, and the lower health you get, the bigger heal you get. So we like that kind of risk-reward gameplay of, I might want to wait a long time to get a really big heal from it, but someone might come in to do that. So we found, though, with our initial implementation of it, that people were doing sort of like, they were playing the game in a way that we didn't want them to play, because it seemed not very fun, where you would have to activate a bunch of your abilities before you actually started fighting someone. Are really great. There's a lot of really good feedback, and this update in particular, every class thread was like 30 pages, right? There was tons of stuff, which
busy,
was great. Yeah.
And it was constructive for the most part, too.
Yeah, and that was just the ones that we created. Like,
Right.
people also made their own threads where they had like really specific things that they want to talk to. So that was really great, and like that's like the coagulating blood change. We got like a lot of good feedback on that. We also have like the bug forums as well.
Yep.
Those recently opened, yep.
Yeah, so people were commenting that Rite of Passage and Blood Craze, you could dodge the heal from it.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
like, yeah, that's just a bug.
would
Like,
you
that
wanna
just got...
dodge a
Yeah. Yeah, like no
No, don't
heal should
heal me,
be... Yeah, exactly.
No, I'd rather lose all my health.
Yeah, so that was just a bug, and we just like fixed it. We're like, oh yeah, good find. Thanks for posting that. Great feedback.
Mistakes happen.
We also, Rich was talking about this a little bit. Our business intelligence group provides us some really great data. They call it the morph bias. Where we can see how many people are picking one morph versus the other, like, oh yeah, this is the one that 90% of the people are picking. It's like, well, the one that only 10%, that's a really good candidate for buffing if almost no one is picking that one.
I would guess it helps determine the play style of those. Folks too, huh? 'Cause
Yeah,
there's
it
definitely
does.
morphs that
Some
better
morphs
for
are
soloing
absolutely
versus-
catered to certain
Yes,
playstyles.
yes.
Yeah.
So like, that isn't like the silver bullet of like, oh, we have to buff this because people aren't
Right.
taking it. Because yeah, it could be like, oh, this is just a part of a really niche build.
Right.
So it's not good in most circumstances, but in the circumstances where it's good, it's awesome.
Right.
So in forum feedback as well, right? Just because a lot of people are commenting on something doesn't mean we need to change. It means this is something we need to investigate.
To look at, yeah.
Like
yeah.
this is something, let's see what's going on here. And the Templar thread, a lot of the Templars were talking about with stamina in particular, how they were running out of stamina really quickly, and they were coming up with like a whole bunch of ideas of, when you activate this ability, you should get stamina. Or like all kinds of stuff. So I went in and looked at those abilities, and I was like, actually, the stamina cost is just wrong on their main nuke ability. It's supposed to be like 20% cheaper.
Right. So there's a case of another
Yeah,
bug.
yeah.
Yeah. So instead of going, doing all this, redesigning a whole bunch of stuff, it's like, oh, okay, let's just fix the.
I was going to say something cool that I saw internally that you guys were doing. They had like this whole document listing out like, here's just a big dump of feedback we've received for all these different classes, and they were just literally going through each one, kind of commenting sort of internally, having chit chats about like, oh, this is a good
Raging
idea, let's
debates.
investigate, and this sounds like a bug, and let's consider this, and well, this won't work for, you know, a larger issue or whatever it is.
That's a big
I
part
thought
of
that
our
was kinda
process.
cool. Yeah.
right, where
Honestly, all the teams do that.
we go through and we troll the threads and we pick
Troll.
out, we read the threads, sorry, and you know, pull out, you know, the things that people are commenting on a lot, and you know, it doesn't matter if it's just a bug or if it's I don't like this playstyle or whatnot. We pull it out, and then we have this huge document that this time I made it and sent it to Eric, and Eric put it up on our Confluence page so that we could debate about it, and we went through and line by line we went through.
Yeah, and we researched every ability in there, and we'd be like, okay, yeah, this is definitely a problem. Here's what we want to do to fix it, or we don't really think this is a problem, and here's the reasons why. And yeah, we went through and talked about everything on that list, and that was a really
And we
productive
got a-
meeting.
yeah,
we got a lot
ton
of
of
great
stuff
changes out of
changed.
that. Yeah,
I'd guess in most cases, fixing a bug is a little more straightforward than making a balance change.
In general,
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah, although
sometimes
some
fixing
bug
bugs are harder.
fixes-
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it definitely depends. It can go either way, and
Yeah.
sometimes fixing a bug actually has huge balance implications.
yeah.
I can see
Because
that,
it's like,
sure.
well, the damage of these things are, you know, kind of equal, and if we fix this bug, then it's gonna shoot this guy up. So like, yeah, they're
Right. So
there's
sometimes
definitely-
one makes the other necessary.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's all the things we kind of think about when these calculations are going on.
So, Jess had mentioned that the final PTS patch is coming up next week. Are there any sort of additional tweaks to balance that you're planning on making between
there's a
now
couple.
and, you know, before we go live?
Yeah. In general, with the updates and PTS, is we start with a pretty large set of changes at the beginning of the PTS, and as we get further into the cycle, we want to make fewer changes because there's less and less time to test it.
Right.
And we don't want to come out with, you know, this huge change at the very last minute, and people are like, whoa, what about this? Like, I didn't even have a lot of time. So that's also part of the reason we don't do weekly updates, is because we wouldn't get that testing cycle, which has been extremely valuable to us. Of like, yeah, let's get a bunch of people in here and playing with it before we push it to live and make sure everything is good and it's fun and it works.
Yeah, bug fixing in general is pretty safe to do. That's why you see a lot of bug fixes in the incrementals. But the larger balance changes, the larger scope, especially the ones that affect global balance, we like to do at a slower pace so that we can actually test through those changes.
Those are saved for the major
Yeah.
updates.
Yeah. So specifically, we do have a few small changes though for the last PTS. Backlash ended up not quite functioning the way we wanted to. I think is a good way to put it.
Templar bombers.
So with the updates we've done to it, it's saving the amount of damage done to the target, and we multiplied that in PvP to make up for the fact that there's battle spirit and you're doing half the amount of damage. However, when we made that fix, the damage was getting doubled each time damage was dealt.
Oh.
The total damage saved. So if you put a dot on the target like Sunfire, it'd be like, it would tick and it would double it, and then it would tick and it would double it
double it.
again.
And then they just fall over.
So yeah,
And then it was a 10K bomb
and
when
then
it went
was-
off.
Yeah. So we updated that and tweaked the numbers a little bit on Backlash. So it's like, you're probably not going to hit the cap while you're solo unless you have like this super offensive build, like, and you throw an ultimate on the target. But if you're working with another player, it's a lot easier to hit the target if you're both attacking them. And then since you do have to damage the target, though, they have a lot of options of defending against that. Like the end payoff of doing 10k damage is, that's really powerful, but
Yeah.
they know that it's on them, and they can be blocking your attacks and roll dodging, and they can do stuff to mitigate the damage as well. So I think it's in a spot with where there's a lot of really interesting play going on with that, and we're really excited to see what players do with it.
Good.
And then one more thing we have coming with the next PTS is the Honor the Dead ability. We have another fix in for that, where it wasn't giving you the magic back sometimes, based on like line of sight. Like if you were healing a target like around a corner,
yeah.
it was sort of, the logic was getting confused there. So we got to fix in for that.
Good.
You should send me your patch notes. So I can get them done.
Yeah, I think Kyle's
Yeah.
typing them up right now, actually.
Kyle,
So,
send those, please.
Yeah.
It's funny. Chat's like, isn't it winter over there? Why is Rich wearing shorts? We just talked about that. Rich always wears shorts.
Yes.
It's a thing.
Always. Unless I'm forced to wear pants. And then I'm unhappy.
Company party, you were happy though.
Well, that was for other reasons.
Oh, okay.
Moving on. So let's see.
Oh, one more thing too. I wanted to say
please.
about live and tweaks and stuff is we're not done with balance. We have more things coming up.
Never done.
Yeah.
We have a long way to go.
Yeah, and we just got some really great additional bot support that we're going to be testing things
Explain
really
what
well.
that means.
We can basically set up a rotation and abilities and gear, and then the computer will do all the abilities in that order
In our
and
internal-
execute all the attacks.
Yep.
So we can get a very precise
We can automate our testing.
damage. Yeah. There's one more thing I wanted to say about balance.
CJ's like, hurry up!
Yeah,
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So yeah, like I said, we were spending a ton of time on the forums, and one of the things we're seeing people ask occasionally is, why do we nerf things? Why don't we always just buff things, right? And that makes sense, right? Because nerfs are painful, right? It's, your ability isn't doing as much damage, it's not as effective, it has a different cost value, right? So we do try to minimize nerfs as much as possible. And if you think of things in terms of the abilities, in terms of a standard deviation, where most of the abilities are pretty close and in the middle and balanced to each other, but then there's a couple of outliers that are weaker than the other abilities, and there are a couple of outliers that are stronger than the other abilities. And generally what we do is we try to push everything down to this sort of middle point. So we'll do a couple nerfs and a couple buffs to the weakest and strongest things,
Right.
to get them all to that center point. Because if we just buffed everything up to that point of the outliers, there's going to be a few things that are end
new
up being
outliers,
a
yeah.
few things that are a little bit stronger, right? So then we got to push
just
everything
keeps
else
going
up,
higher
right?
and
And it's just going to
higher.
keep getting
Yeah.
pushed, and the global balance of the game is then shifting, because instead of just nerfing these 5 abilities, we had to buff every other ability in the game up to this level.
And then you have to rebalance things like trials and
Yeah,
dungeons.
Yeah, and that's when
exactly. And
Finn gets
PvP,
upset.
yeah, all that stuff, yeah.
Okay.
So we definitely try to minimize the number of nerfs that we do, and we definitely do more buffs than we do nerfs. But like sometimes you just have to do a nerf, and overall the game is more fun if it's more balanced and fair for everyone. So we don't like to do nerfs, but sometimes you have to do it.
It's true. It's like a yin and yang thing.
Yeah.
A little bit of buff, a little bit of nerf.
Yeah.
And it's constant. Like always balance. Okay. Well, do you want to wrap that up?
Sure.
Do you want to take questions? I think we might be out of time for this
I
segment.
mean, there's a million questions.
How about we do 2 real fast?
Take your favorite two.
I mean, we're on a delay too,
Because
so we're just
CJ's
going to have to
gonna-
awkwardly sit here.
CJ's already given us
Right.
the stink eye.
Frost staff tanking. I know I saw a few questions about that. Like, where are we going with that, and why was it introduced, and sort of what's our vision with that? And I don't know if you want to talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
that
no,
for
totally.
like 30 seconds.
Yeah. Overall, with a lot of the changes we do, we wanted to open up new play styles and new possibilities. Like we don't want just the content to be about go anywhere, do anything, like in one Tamriel, right? You can go, to all these different places. We also want to feel like you can explore different options and come up with cool, unique, creative builds. So with Frost Staff Tanking, we gave people a lot more options of you don't have to be stamina to play this style. You can be Magicka as well. And
Right.
it gives a lot of cool combinations in PvP and in PvE. So we're really excited to see what people do with it. We started on the conservative side in terms of the numbers because we didn't want to make it too powerful to be like, you have to Frost Staff Tank and this is now the dominant strategy.
Right,
It's more like,
yeah.
hey, this is a cool thing. We want people to explore.
Try it
and
out, yeah.
people really like it. We're going to see where the balance lands and how many people are doing it, and we'll go from there.
Yep.
That was a very quick answer. Thank
Yeah.
you. The other thing I keep seeing in chat is proc sets.
Proc sets.
Yes.
Proc
Yes.
sets. We made some
So-
changes in this patch.
We did. We're gonna look at those and see, how they work. And I play in PvP all the time. I'm in Azura Star. They are pretty strong.
You've seen some proc sets firsthand.
I have had people
He's
like
seen some proc sets in his day.
people like ESO just drive by and I'm dead. I'm like, what the f just happened? So Yes.
You're like, he didn't even turn himself.
No, he just kept going and I was
literally
dead.
walked through my character and killed me.
So yeah, we're going to look at it. We're going to monitor it, and if we need to keep making changes, we'll keep making changes.
It seems like in the name of not over nerfing, you guys are kind of doing it in
Exactly.
steps and being
Yep.
careful.
So them not being able to crit is a major change.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to see how that shakes out and kind of go at that from there, because we don't want to make them not viable anymore.
Right.
Because they're cool and they're fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely could have nerfed it so much that everyone didn't use those anymore, but they're really fun and they're really cool.
Yeah.
And we still want them to be useful. We just don't want them to be like, this is
The
what
only
everyone...
option.
Yeah, exactly. This is so much better than everything else that you feel like you have to do this
Yeah.
to compete with people. So, and in particular, the burst damage was the biggest problem with them, right?
Yep.
Because it was like, they would all proc, they would go off at the beginning, and all that damage would happen, and the damage could crit. So this was our first shot at it with the crit. We brainstormed a ton of ideas for this, so we still have plenty of things that we can do. And this is what we went, because we thought it would be the best just for making it so that you could use it and it'd still be really good, but it wouldn't have as much potential to just blow someone up and kill them instantly.
Okay.
Great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you
Yes,
Sure.
thank
to
you
both of you
guys.
for
Yeah.
joining us today.
It's great to be back.
And now,
We're
I
going to
guess we
talk.
have to do a weird transition.
Well, we already had one of those with Casey on.
That's true.
So next up, we're going to talk to Mandy and Philip about Homestead and player housing. We're going to do a quick switcheroo here.
Nothing to say.
So
here.
in the
Nothing's
meantime,
happening.
How are y'all doing? Thanks
How's
for joining
it
us.
going?
PTS testing has been a lot of fun. We've
has.
really enjoyed seeing all the houses that you guys have created. We've been going on Twitch and YouTube and the official forums and Twitter, and you'd be surprised how many of these actually get plopped into an email and sent around the whole office, and everybody's like, that one's so awesome.
That
We
one's
even have
really
a chat
cool. Yep.
dedicated to housing, and we're constantly sharing your creations and looking at them, and just amazed at all the cool stuff you guys are creating. In fact, we're going to look at some of them once we wrap up with these guys.
Speaking of housing, we are working on some sort of contest for
Yes.
like housing decoration or what have you. So obviously we'll. No. Anyone named CJ is not eligible, unfortunately. We are working on kind of finalizing the rules for it, but we'll definitely post it up
Yep.
and give everyone a heads up once it gets started.
So get your decoration ideas ready.
Start thinking. Housing. We have the experts here with us. Mandy Parker, our systems designer, and Philip Draven is our lead systems designer. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for returning. You guys have both been on the show before.
Yeah.
But for anybody who hasn't met you before, do you want to real quick just introduce, like, what do you do?
Sure. I'm Philip Draven, the lead systems designer. We're in charge of pretty much all of the not combat robo-centric things that aren't
The not robo
content-based.
stuff.
Yeah, so crafting systems, harvest systems, justice systems, housing system, and Mandy is in charge of the housing system.
Right, and formerly also, well, and still ongoing, the justice system. So, yeah.
Mandy is housing expert.
Yes.
So one of the really cool things that's coming up in this whole player housing system, part of it is the housing editor, where you could literally just take objects, rotate them around, place them wherever you want.
Even on the ceiling.
I mean, this thing is insane. Like, how do you even go about? Like,
How do you even?
How do you even, like, where do you start with something like player housing and decide, all right, this is what we're going to do, and, like, where do you go?
So, I mean, obviously we're big fans of housing systems in other games. We've been playing MMOs for forever.
Yep, that's true.
Mandy was crazy in previous games that had robust systems that we won't specify. But we wanted to try to see what people enjoyed from those previous systems, and we wanted to see what would fit really well in the Elder Scrolls.
Right.
So we started breaking down those things, and our guiding star was generally player creativity. What's going to give the players the most creative options to do whatever they want to do.
Right.
And boy, have they been creative.
Yeah. The first thing that we did was just look at all of the things we already have built and just lay them out and be like, look at each and every single piece of furniture in the entire game that currently exists and examine it to see if it has geometry that we want to use, if it's going to fit in a house, if it's going to look good in a house. And then we went through and we decided, like, these are the different sets that we're going to support. And so sometime a while ago, we just had a giant grid in one of our test areas that just had just hundreds and hundreds of items, and we were like, okay, these are all the Dunmer sets. This is what we're going to use for that. And then we started dividing those out into say, like, these are the ones we think we can use for crafting. They make sense. And so it was very systematic, just breaking them up in different categories.
Yeah.
And that took quite a while.
Yeah, the game is obviously immense. We've got the 10 different races. They all have different architecture styles, different furniture styles, all kinds of things. And we wanted to bring all of that into housing, obviously.
Right. And then we also had a section where it was like, these are all the interesting items that we could associate with quests. And so we tied those in with our achievement
achievements,
furnishing.
yeah.
And there's something like, what, over 2,000 items or something that is
Yeah.
being launched with this?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is effing crazy.
Yes.
That is a lot.
There are a lot.
Yeah, we love seeing all the videos of people exploring all the options and showing them all off. It's been really exciting. We're thrilled.
And then not to mention deciding which ones would go into the furniture crafting system.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the furniture crafting system, which Chris, who's been on the show before, he went through and figured out how that would work and how we would balance all of that. And being able to balance something like, 1,000, 1,200 items in a crafting system that's entirely new with new recipes, new kinds of items. I mean, like, it was a huge task in itself.
And making sure there was that progression, making sure the existing crafters were rewarded, making sure that new players felt like they could dive into the system and not be
Right.
far behind.
Right.
Those are all things that we had to consider.
So once players started getting into the PTS and kind of trying out the system, one of the common questions we saw popping up on the forums was, this is really cool and there's a lot to do, but there's no storage. So we know that's something that isn't currently in. What makes adding storage to our player housing system so difficult? And, is that something that we considered at first? Or?
So there are a number of factors that go into this. Housing is such an enormous system. It's really a pile of systems. And we wanted to make sure we got the fundamental pieces in place first that we could build on. And anything that was beyond the getting items, placing them in your home, had to come under a lot of scrutiny for, all right, well, where's the value going to be here? How much are people going to benefit from it? Things like that. And much like combat, we look at the different metrics that we have to track player participation and player statistics. And we started looking at, adding more capacity to your home for things other than furnishings, because to be clear, you can put a ton of furnishings in your home.
Right.
So there is storage in that respect. But for other things, we were like, okay, how many people are going to be affected by this? And we saw that over half of our active users have literally never upgraded their bag, their backpack, or their bank. And it was something like less than 3%, I think, of players had actually maxed out all of their possible upgrades. And so it's definitely a compelling thing. I understand how, and why people would want more of it. It was something that we had to make some very, careful calls about what's going to make it and what's not, because obviously...
Just for launch.
Just for launch.
Yeah.
So now that we have the fundamentals, we can continue to look at those things. We can continue to try to find solutions and alleviate those concerns in the future, but it just isn't part of the start.
I know one of the things that was brought up was a furnishing bag, like the crafting bag.
Yeah,
Oh, that's interesting.
That was a pretty popular idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of problems with that. So I also worked on the craft bag, and one of the big problems with doing that is the benefit of the craft bag is that you have a very small amount of items that you have a bunch of, right? So you have like a bunch of iron ore.
Oh, and they stack.
And there's
Right.
and you get
Yeah,
thousands
yeah,
of
yeah.
them, right?
And we don't really get that kind of like payoff with a furnishing bag. We don't know where we're going to end with the furnishing bag. We don't have any idea how many
Right,
furnishings we'll have in the future.
Yeah, instead of having thousands of 100 items, you have one of potentially thousands of items.
Yeah.
And so it ends up not working the same on the back end.
And, and you do have the ability to store some of your furnishings in like your in room or something like that, and then have that as like your little storage warehouse. But that's not to say we won't do that in the future. We just don't think it's important right now to include that.
And that did factor into some of our ancillary decisions in terms of why you can have multiple homes, why you
Right.
don't have to pay maintenance.
Right.
And so you can get additional homes and
Right.
fill them with holding objects and extra things from furnishings.
I don't play a game so I can pay my mortgage
Right.
twice.
No.
Like I don't need two of
But
them.
that is pretty common in a lot of housing systems, right?
Yes,
And so
yes.
we had to make some calls on that because it could be a money sink, but we didn't want to have a barrier to entry. We didn't want to have people get frustrated with all these furnishing items filling their inventory that had nowhere to
Right.
go.
Right. Focus on the fun part.
Totally.
Another thing that we saw brought up a lot was each size of home, I'll say the small homes or the medium homes, they all have caps to the amount of players that can go into them. And we kind of touched on this on the forums a few weeks ago, whenever it was, that it's due to performance reasons, and I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate on that at all.
Do you want to dive into that?
I mean,
Mandy's
it's,
like, no.
you basically covered it. It
Yeah.
is entirely due to performance, and we are going to continue to monitor it. We want to see how players react to the different things that they put in their homes, how much of a strain that causes, and then we want to make sure that everybody has a really good experience. And so, if we can meet those things, then we can reevaluate.
Absolutely. So we had to start with the worst case scenario. So if somebody has a massive home with 24 of their friends in there,
Right.
spamming abilities,
Everybody's dueling.
You've got blood fountains everywhere.
Yeah.
What is that going to do to the performance of what you're playing on? And so we had to figure out, okay, it still works well under these constraints with these number of players, and then work our way backwards, because we still wanted to have a progression of upgrading through your homes.
Right.
Now, again, performance is something that is an ongoing and improvement process that is happening across the game since the game launched and will continue to happen.
Right.
So it's not unthinkable that at some point we could reevaluate based on those performance gains.
Yeah.
And this is just the beginning.
Absolutely.
Of the housing
Absolutely.
system, furnishing, crafting.
Yes.
Everything that's come up has pretty much been stuff that we wanted to get in at the start, but
Right.
we
We have a
realized
list
You
of
have to start
things
somewhere.
that,
you got to
that are
start
coming.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And we're excited to grow the system. There's
Yes,
so many things
absolutely.
we can do with it. Like, people are going to be blown away for a long time to come, I think.
Yeah.
So I know you guys have spent a lot of time looking at people's creations on
Oh, yes.
forums, on Reddit, on Twitter,
Yes.
Twitch, YouTube. Have any of those ideas inspired future design decisions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, completely. Nice. Yeah. Several times a week, I'll go home and watch, videos on YouTube. I'll watch our streamers, and they make some amazing things. They make some hilarious things too, which I also love. But then I come in the next day, and Phil has usually found some other videos I haven't seen, and then we discuss them, and then we talk about things that we can incorporate in the future to make things, more interesting for players.
Absolutely. Looking at how we try to include some building block materials, because we knew people would be creative, but seeing just how far people are taking that has had us considering, well, what can we do in the future to support that more in terms
Right.
of those types
Right,
of open-ended building blocks.
Right.
So we're going to explore that probably.
One thing that we had put in a previous PTS patch was the ability to preview the furniture crafting.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that we were going to expand on the preview system. I mean, this isn't really, I guess, part of housing, but just something cool.
So all we're committing to right now is the previewing the furniture,
Yes.
crafting, and seeing it in the purchase editor, in the purchase tab of the editor. But it does, pull the object out of the world,
Right.
let you look at it, give you kind of a sense of scale, make sure you're not clipping into other objects. Because one of the things that we ran into very early on was you want to look at a giant tree, but you're in an in-room. How do we preview that in the world, right?
Right.
So we had to find some creative solutions for that. So that's why you have kind of this blank slate area with this stone floor to kind of give you a sense of size.
Right.
And that'll be in at launch, which
Yeah.
is
I
pretty
mean,
cool, I
we're
think.
finalizing it right now, but yeah.
You
Yeah,
guys should
that-
include banana for scale.
We actually talked about that. Yeah, we seriously
have
considered
bananas.
it. For
we
a
do
bit.
have bananas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have lots of things.
Yeah.
Phil, when you had mentioned that 50% of players haven't upgraded, we were talking about with in-game gold or crown upgrades,
Yeah,
right?
at all.
Yeah.
Just they're still using the base inventory across the board.
So they've never gone to a bag vendor and
Exactly, or a banker
Interesting.
and purchase the
Wow.
banker upgrade, etc. And so we're going to talk about different ways that we can get that message out a little bit more, because players might be frustrated with their inventory and not know that they've got
they can
these
upgrade it.
immediate solutions that
Right.
would help them.
Yeah.
But that's in addition to everything else that we're looking at. But-
okay.
So we'd like to show off some of the really cool homes that we've seen on PTS. We pulled some screenshots. Like Jess was mentioning earlier, we have chats set up where people are just kind of going through, oh my God, did you see this one? And this was
Yeah.
so cool.
Great.
So-
We're doing all
And this
that
is
internally too.
This is just a handful. Like there have been so many.
Yep.
So this one is by Sothasil. This is a really elaborate arena that it looks like he built on the. Oh gosh, what was the name of it?
The
Topol.
island.
Grand Topol
The Grand
Grand
Topol
Topol
Island. 632 blocks. Each of those stone blocks is one
Hand
block
placed.
that he hand placed, and
Right.
I guess this took approximately 6 hours to create.
I think he was saying he couldn't even really decorate much of the island after he built this. It took up so much space and used so many little blocks. I think it came out really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually a lot more to it than this, but this is the one shot we picked to show it off.
This shot, this one was pretty recent. They were saying they built this only with decoration items. So the walls are orcish bars, the corners are orcish corners, and the openings is like a small stage or something.
Yeah.
There's lots of planks I see.
Yeah.
Lots of planks.
Foundations maybe.
It's funny, if you see some of the other screenshots they had posted, there's like this little ladder going up to it.
They
That's
built
made
a
with-
jumping puzzle.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's really
going
funny.
to it, yeah. So this, the
Yes.
Star Wars fans recognize this probably.
Love it,
So
love
this is by Van Halen.
The Van Halen?
The Van Halen.
I didn't even know he played.
So he calls this the Carpenter-001. It's made from carpets from Craglorn Cave and columns from Stone Falls Castle. So that is 100% made out of items that are in the furnishings.
He must have had to create some sort of like scaffolding or something to just
Right?
get up there.
Yeah.
This one I thought was really cool. This is from Yolo Hitsu. Sorry if I kind of butchered that. This is just a temple that he created again on the same island you saw earlier. And
The lighting is
if you
awesome.
go on the forums,
gorgeous.
there's a bunch of really cool screenshots showing just the different angles from this one. I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So this one is from Fias, and when Gina and I looked at this, we actually had to ask Mandy what was done because it looks so complete and
It's
perfect.
very pro.
So he actually, I apologize if this isn't Fias is not a he, placed all of the trees and plants and shrubs and everything you see, maybe even the rocks. What do you
Not
think,
those
Mandy?
rocks.
Not those rocks?
Yeah, I think those are part of it.
So
Started
this
with
is
rocks.
the Serenity Falls estate. Picked trees from the Strident Springs Dements and the large cypress from the Big Island property. He wanted it to feel a bit like an old forest.
I think
Definitely
he
does.
succeeded. This is really
It's
good.
beautiful.
Yeah, that whole garden thread was really amazing.
Yeah. There
were
How
a bunch
lush
in there.
and all of the diversity.
Right.
There really were. The next two shots are from Sadie Joan. She was saying she actually has a degree in interior design and really enjoyed just playing around with this because it's basically, her job and her hobby. Just really enjoyed playing with all the different furnishing types. So there was this interior shot and then this
Wow.
one, which I
Yeah.
forget how many candles were here, but it was a lot.
That
This
is
is
cool.
nice.
Isn't that cool?
That looks like something you'd see at like a beach wedding.
Yeah.
You walk all the way
Yeah.
down the aisle.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So this one is by Silky Soft, and don't let your eyes deceive you here. He actually created this cave completely from rocks.
Oh,
Yeah.
So it's
I was about to say, I don't recognize that.
this is a hand-created cave that
Created
he
the
built
cave.
for his cinch on the island.
That's
Isn't
fantastic.
that cool?
Man.
This one, Agent Joseph created, he said it was made with 250 items, 2 tents, 25 seats, and all the crafting stations are in there as well.
Wow. Holy
I
smokes.
know, I
Absolutely
clicked on this and was
beautiful.
like, what?
This is from Fessius. This is the Ebonheart Chateau main room decoration.
Very nice.
Really nicely
Very
done.
nice. And we have one more to show you from Mako1132, created his own arena.
That is
So you
awesome.
can go in
Yes.
and duel each other. Again, this looks like it was in the Earth Tier Cavern.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
We've seen
A lot of
Yeah,
arenas.
yes,
James.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we saw a lot of arenas. So we think with dueling in houses, players are going to be hosting their own arena or dueling tournaments.
And there are a lot of like floating arenas in the sky.
Really, really cool.
So
we've
much
noticed.
that like I know we had to start looking at certain bugs. Like, well, these things are actually kind of going through because people are fighting in the skies.
Yeah, it definitely is a little at your own risk. If you fall and die, that's not on us.
yeah, I
Right?
guess if
Right.
you're dueling in a floating arena, that's an added risk if you use a knockback, huh?
Absolutely.
That
saw-
sounds fun.
I saw a couple people put like rugs down so they can knock people through the rugs. It's good. I
I
love
thought
it.
you meant so they had like a cushy fall. They could just land on the rug.
No, no. It's,
More heinous than that.
yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for
Yeah.
Yeah,
joining the
absolutely.
show. And I know everyone's really stoked to get their hands on Homestead
We are-
for real on the live
Yeah.
server.
Absolutely thrilled. Like, can't wait to see what people come up
We were
with.
beyond excited to make it. So.
Yeah, and there's so much more to come, and we're excited with everything that we managed to get in there that we
Yeah.
barely even touched on.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
passion
Absolutely.
definitely shows because this is
It's awesome.
a really cool system.
Thanks.
We would like to do a giveaway.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mandy, what is your favorite house?
Oh, man. On the
Just
spot.
like,
On the
just
spot.
like any of them.
Any of them.
Any of them.
Oh, that's rough. Man, Nate would kill me if I just named one of them.
Well, here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to give away a house. Well, a house. in
The
Tamriel.
house you choose.
Whatever house you would like to give away.
Someone is gonna win.
You're the product
I
owner.
mean-
don't think we can. Can we give away the?
Yes.
We can.
We checked.
We can.
Well, it depends what you're thinking. Anyway, if you'd like to enter to win a house in Tamriel of your very own, type in Homestead to chat. And you will be
for it,
entered to
man.
win. Homestead, all one word. Mandy's going to think.
So what is what is your
so
favorite
me
one?
personally, my test home that I always do everything on, on our internal servers is either the island or Hunting's palatial home. And I would say I would go with maybe the island, just because everybody loves the island. But
Islands for everyone.
I don't know. I love the Red Guard homes as well.
How about this? We can even leave it up to the winner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
They
that
have a
would-
favorite home that
I
they've
like that
seen.
a lot more.
Mandy doesn't have to commit now.
Yes, because I don't want our artists to like be in the hallway when I leave and they're like, "Why didn't you pick my home?"
I worked so
No,
hard on this
I
one.
seriously love all the homes, including the inns. They're amazing.
Got a lot of people entering. They're all like sweet houses.
Yes.
So, yeah. this is
So
cool.
you'll get this when Homestead launches.
Yes, you will not get a house before everybody. You will get it once it
Yeah.
launches, either on PC or console. Again, February 6th for PC, February 21st for console.
Coming up soon.
Damn it, I did it. Everyone was joking about, let's play the drinking game where Gina looks at the wrong camera.
It's been a
There
while.
it is. It happens, sorry. All right, so we'll give it just a few more seconds. Everyone's still entering and going crazy.
Who's it going to be?
We're gonna have to insist that the winners send us screenshots of how they decorate this home.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that would
please.
be cool. That would be cool. Okay.
Let's pick a winner.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Who is it?
Guy P33.
Okay.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Congrats, Guy. We'll just say
Congratulations.
congrats,
Yeah.
Guy.
Congrats, you guy. We'll shoot you a message and see which home you would like. If you'd like to leave it up to Mandy, what have you, it's your choice on any platform you wish. So thank you again to both of you for joining us today, and I'm sure we'll see you again
Thank you,
on the show.
guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can't
Thanks,
wait for
guys.
Homestead. Thank you.
Thank
Neither
you.
can we.
All right, so next up, we are going to chat with Lucas about the awesome key art that you guys see with every update since Thieves Guild. So he's just getting in place now.
Sorry, I'm typing
Sending
to the
a
winner.
message to the winner.
Congrats, you won. Yay, yay.
Congrats, you won a home. This is not spam.
Let's see. Please send, well, not even that. I'll just say, congrats on winning a home. So, Guy PP33, I'm sending you a message, right?
Look in
Now.
your, is it the other box?
It might be in the other tab. It might
Just
be
in
in your
case.
inbox. It's a surprise. We'll see where it goes. So, yeah, the key art that Jess was mentioning, for Homestead, it's the scene with, everyone gathered around the fire, and there's a little
with
puppy
the
on
dog.
the rug, and most of our key art pieces actually get created from... Oh, CJ, you totally trolled me. I thought you were saying, look over here.
It's my life.
Man.
My life's goal to make you look in the wrong camera.
Well, in any case, we do have one artist who creates all those art pieces, and he's here with us today. So this is Lucas.
Hi,
Szymanski.
Lucas.
Thank you so much for joining.
Hey, everybody.
He is one of our senior concept artists here at Cinemax Online. So you only work on these key arts, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
it
that's all I do.
takes-
They take a long time.
It takes a while to complete, and they're so detailed.
That's one of the things. I mean, the art director wants me to make them very detailed and high
they are.
resolution, so we can zoom in and use them in different, in different
Or
capacities.
they could get blown up and printed really big.
That's
I know
true.
we did that at PAX last year.
Yeah. So
That's right.
which key art pieces specifically have you worked on?
I've worked on every key art piece since and including Thieves Guild. So
So you've done Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood. What
Shadows
else?
of the
Shadows
Hiss.
of the Hiss, One Tamriel, and now for Homestead.
that's all of them.
So these are the ones, if you guys are wondering, key art, these are the ones that we usually create the big wallpapers out of and that you see at the top of our webpage. They're the really cool, I don't know, how would you explain them?
Sort of artistic, kind of an
Scenes.
yeah.
Yeah. Big illustrations. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yes. So, what is the overall process to create something like this? Where do you start?
Well, it starts with the art director because it's his vision, and he'll usually have specific ideas that he will want to explore for the different directions we could take the key art based on the tone of the release, and what features we're trying to get out there and highlight. And so it all begins with the discussions with the art director, and from there. I'll go and do a bunch of thumbnail sketches. And
I think we have an example of the thumbnail sketches.
we do. We have the thumbnail sketches from...
Let me wave my hand. There it is.
from the key art for housing. And so this is just a few of the ones that we did, and we'll do several rounds going back and forth.
Wow.
And, we refine and maybe explore different directions that we hadn't thought of initially. And then we have to get... we kind of have to get a sign-off from different executives and the marketing department, because there are a lot of different stakeholders that are going to be influenced by what we eventually choose. And in the case of this release, we chose the thumbnail right in the middle there of that image, because we wanted to express, and maybe we could put up the final image.
Oh, yeah. So
just so people know what we're talking about if they haven't seen it.
That's not the final image.
That's not the final image. That's we wanted to convey home, obviously, Homestead, and so we wanted it to feel cozy, and so we chose, a Nord manor with a questing group coming back after a day of fighting monsters and just kind of hanging out and eating, drinking, telling stories together, and with the Nord who owns this home is showing off his massive trophy troll head he's got there.
Regaling the tale of how he caught the big one. Huh?
Exactly. And so, from the thumbnails, it just goes into production. And so usually I'll start with line art and do a detailed drawing. And then I paint in grayscale underneath that drawing. And that's just to really dial in the values so I know what I'm going to be painting. And then I go into color on top of that. And sometimes I'll build a simple 3D scene in a 3D package, and then just use that as a guide for perspective rather than having to draw vanishing points and perspective lines. So,
I see some people in chat asking if we're going to be releasing a wallpaper of
Yes.
that art, and yes, we definitely will.
Yeah, we will. We're going to do it at launch.
Let's see. So... It's funny, in the Homestead key art that you guys saw a second ago, I saw some people asking, what's with the triangular checkerboard? And at first I was like, what checkerboard?
There's a
and
lot of detail.
Yeah, there's just little details like that. That thing, yes. So
Yeah,
what's the deal with that?
So that just came from trying to figure out different things that I could include, different objects that I could include in the image to, I guess, give ideas or give indications of what the people who live in this house might be doing. When I'm painting an image, I like to think about it's just this image is just one moment in time, but there is obviously there was stuff that happened before we started looking at this image, and there's going to be stuff that's happening afterward, and that really helps me to flesh out the idea of what this world is and what's going on. And so in this case, I was thinking maybe they're hanging around the fire, maybe they were playing board games earlier, and so I talked to Lauren Schick, our lore master, and I asked him what kind of Tamrielic board games exist in world, and he mentioned there's a stealable item in Cyrodiil called Strife Game Board. It's a board with inlaid wood and triangular pieces, and made for 3 players. And so I didn't know what that looked like. I don't think we actually have a visual depiction of it, so I just decided to come up with that. And so I sketched that out, and there it is. So I have no idea how one would play it. But maybe that's something that fans could try to figure out.
I saw someone in chat call out that Khajiit is snarling at the dog, and that's totally a thing.
It's true.
Yeah, so the Khajiit's eating a turkey leg or something there, and the dog is kind of staring.
Eyeing it up,
Yeah, he's
like
he's
dogs do.
begging. Dog's begging for it.
He's like, trade bone for meat?
She's like, get off. So are there any other little Easter eggs or fun stories that you kind of hide in other key arts like this?
Yeah, and it just so happens we have a couple images available to talk about that.
Imagine that. It's like we prepared for it.
Yeah, so in the Dark Brotherhood image, key arts comes to mind. In this one here,
I love this one.
much like in the housing one, I was trying to come up with different clutter I could put on this guy's desk just to flesh out the full scene. And I thought it would be kind of appropriate to have a globe, like a map on a globe somewhere in there. But I wasn't sure because I'm still new to the Elder Scrolls world, and I'll admit I didn't know whether Nirn was in a sphere or if it was a flat land. And so
I would argue a lot of people probably don't know the answer to that,
well,
so don't
I
feel
do
too
now,
bad.
thankfully, because I talked to Lawrence again, and he explained it. That Tamriel is on a globe, and so the problem is I didn't know what latitude Tamriel exists on, and so I didn't want to accidentally define lore by putting an axis on that globe. So
Lucas,
the
the new
gyroscope
lore
does
master.
not demonstrate any. You can't tell what latitude anything is. So. So that's one thing, and then on the other Dark Brotherhood key art, this one, the story is kind of that this guy, this noble lord he's about to get it from a member of the Dark Brotherhood, and what's unclear is exactly who contracted this killing, but I guess it is clear if you look closely, because the Black Sacrament, which is used to trigger
The contract.
a contract for the Dark Brotherhood, it requires nightshade leaves or nightshade petals to be rubbed on the blade that's used in that sacrament. And so the guard on the right is actually clutching nightshade in his fist. And so we talked about, with the art director, we talked about some ideas for this little love triangle that could be going on here between this noble lord and then this girl that he's totally skeeving out on, and then and the head of his guard, that maybe the two of them have a secret romance. And so
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like a recipe for fanfic.
there you go, write it up.
No, that's really cool that each of these actually has a story, or at least a story that you guys have talked about, as well as something that you want to evoke from each of them.
Yeah, well,
Now I kind of want to know what all of them are.
well, I spent a long time on them, so I'll be working on them for over a month, and
Wow.
I need something to entertain myself while I do that. So
Nice. We're going to do one last giveaway. Don't leave yet, though. We're not finished. We will do one more giveaway. So just to kind of get the ball rolling, or maybe get the dice thrown, if you will, we're going to do a mud crab pet. In-game pet for any platform of your choice. So if you would like to try and win your very own Tamrielic mud crab, you can type mud crab into chat. All one word. What?
That's so creative.
Thank you. I spent a lot of time trying to think, what should the keyword be?
Oh, gosh.
I was
So
gonna do Lucas, but maybe it'd be weird if everyone's just chanting your name in chat.
So that went
That's the way I
from
like it.
your grayscale and kind of filling in all the details.
yeah, so this is just kind of a time lapse that shows the process that it went through from the initial sketch all the way through to completion.
That is cool.
Can I say that is badass? Really cool,
Here it is
Lucas.
again.
I feel like every time we look at these, we see another little detail.
I know.
You can kind of see as it happens how things change, and
You
the
just
whole-
gonna start adding things.
yeah, the whole thing isn't necessarily planned out right at the beginning, and ideas continue to come to me as I work on it.
Yeah, like this
It
guy
must
that
be
owns-
hard to finally say, like, okay, I'm finished.
Yeah,
you
I
wanna
hate
keep adding more
every
to it.
painting that I do when I'm done with it. Like I can't look. I haven't looked at this in well over a month since I finished it, because
Wow.
I'm so sick of it when I'm done.
Oh,
Well, it looks really
Yes, it
good.
does.
Came
The
out
players
very
love
nice.
Oh,
these.
thanks.
All right, so we are going to choose a winner to see who will get this exclusive mud crab pet with keyword mud crab. Winner is Sir
Seguno.
Seguno.
Congrats, Sir Seguno.
Congratulations on your win. I did it again. I'll shoot you a message after the stream wraps up, and we can get you your little mud crab. So thank you so much
Yeah,
for
it's great
coming
to
on
be
the
here.
show. And I know everyone is probably very anxious to see what you're working on next. But
I'm
we
anxious
will-
to finish it.
I'm sure it's going to be great. We will release wallpapers for the Homestead key art
So every time you guys see key art from now on, you can know exactly who created it.
This guy right here.
Yep.
It's me.
So thank you to everybody for joining us on ESO Live today.
Yep.
So good
Thank
to
you
be
so
back.
much for coming in and watching our return show. We hope you enjoyed it.
As always, if you have feedback, let us know. We are looking at the forum threads. I guess that was it. We're looking at the forum threads.
And if you'd like to get notifications when we're on next time, we are going to try to do this every other Friday, but be sure to follow the Bethesda Twitch channel.
Update your bookmarks. We are over on the Bethesda channel now, and as we mentioned earlier, we're probably going to shoot for 3:00 p.m. now for our show start times.
Yep. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to seeing you in Homestead.
We will see you in Homestead. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.